When defeat came, so did my depression. There wasn't a chance of making the outgoing love of St. Francis a workable and joyous way of life until these fatal and almost absolute dependencies were cut away. Because I had over the years undergone a little spiritual development, the absolute quality of these frightful dependencies had never been so starkly revealed. Had never before been so starkly revealed. Reinforced by what grace I could secure in prayer, I found I had to exert every ounce of will and action to cut off these faulty emotional dependencies upon people, upon AA, indeed upon any set of circumstances whatsoever. Then only could I be free to love as Francis had. Emotional and instinctual satisfactions I saw were really the extra dividends of having love, offering love, and expressing a love appropriate to each relation of life. Plainly, I could not avail myself of God's love until I was able to offer it back to Him by loving others as He would have me. And I couldn't possibly do that so long as I was victimized by false dependencies. For my dependency meant demand, a demand for the possession and control of the people and the conditions surrounding me. While those words, absolute dependency, may look like a gimmick, they were the ones that helped to trigger my release into my present degree of stability and quietness of mind, qualities which I am now trying to consolidate by offering love to others regardless of the return to me. This seems to be the primary healing circuit, an outgoing love of God's creation and His people, by means of which we avail ourselves of His love for us. It is most clear that the real current can't flow until our paralyzing dependencies are broken and broken at depth. Only then can we possibly have a glimmer of what adult love really is. Spiritual calculus, you say? Not a bit of it. Watch any AA of 6 months working with a new 12-step case. If the case says to the devil with you, the 12th step only smiles and turns to another case. He doesn't feel frustrated or rejected. If his next case responds and in turn starts to give love and attention to other alcoholics, yet gives none back to him, the sponsor is happy about it anyway. He still doesn't feel rejected. Instead, he rejoices that his one-time prospect is sober and happy. And if his next following case turns out in later time to be his best friend or romance, then the sponsor is most joyful. But he well knows that his happiness is a byproduct, the extra dividend of giving without any demand for a return. The really stabilizing thing for him was having and offering love to that strange drunk on his doorstep. That was Francis at work, powerful and practical, minus dependency and minus demand. In the first 6 months of my own sobriety, I worked hard with many alcoholics. Not a one responded. Yet this work kept me sober. It wasn't a question of those alcoholics giving me anything. My stability came out of trying to give, not out of demanding that I receive. Thus, I think it can work out with emotional sobriety. If we examine every disturbance we have, great or small, we will find at the root of it some unhealthy dependency and its consequent unhealthy demand. Let us, with God's help, continually surrender these hobbling demands. Then we can be set free to live and love. We may then be able to 12th step ourselves and others into emotional sobriety. Of course, I haven't offered you a really new idea, only a gimmick that has started to unhook several of my own hexes at depth. Nowadays, my brain no longer races compulsively in either elation, grandiosity, or depression. I have been given a quiet place in bright sunshine.
All right, thank you so much for that. And we have, sorry, I'm doing the host thing and admitting people too. So today we have a very special guest, Belinda F. I think a lot of people here are very familiar with her. She comes very highly recommended. The right person always comes in the right week. And I feel like we're really blessed to have you and have fun with it. Appreciate you doing it.
Thank you so much, Glenn. I really appreciate being asked to be of service. I am Belinda. I'm an alcoholic. When Sam called me, I was like, oh my gosh, emotional sobriety. Like, really? Can we pick another topic maybe? My heart is filled with love and joy because I see so many people that have been so instrumental in my sobriety and expressed love even at my craziest, and that have always been there to hear me, listen to me, and share their experience, and mainly obviously the solution, but the spiritual solution. And I'm so grateful for each one of you. I see Gary get on, and I see Mary get on, and I see Kirk get on. I said, oh my God, like I am so intimidating. Clint and I can talk about anything. He doesn't intimidate me, but thankfully. So really, first, I would like to just start off with saying just a really short set aside prayer, and then followed by a very short meditation. And you don't have to meditate with me, but so I want to ask God to help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my recovery, and emotional sobriety. Help me die to self so that, God, you can live in and through me to carry a message that may be helpful to someone else. Please help me have an open mind, an open heart, and an attitude of humility. Thank you. And so if you just want to do this short meditation with me, if you close your eyes and just breathe in love and breathe out fear. Breathe in love. Breathe out fear. Breathe in love. And breathe out fear. All right. I don't know if the energy in the room you're in changed, but it certainly changed in mine. Anytime I invite God in, it just immediately I get a sense of relief, or like the fear prayer says, I commence to outgrow fear. Doesn't mean it all goes away, but I begin to fear less. I am truly grateful to be here, especially among people I love and adore, and among people I've just recently met, and those of you that I don't know yet. But basically I drank for over 32 years. I grew up in an alcoholic home. My dad got sober when I was 12. And when he got sober is about when I started drinking. And I had no clue what it meant to be alcoholic, actually, because my dad drank every day. I thought that was the definition of alcoholism. Some of the things I'm going to share doesn't make me alcoholic, but, I was molested growing up. I was in a sexually abusive relationship for years. I was in another domestic, physically abusive relationship. Those things don't make me alcoholic, but they sure made for great drinking. Sports, horses, athletics, rodeo, and all that gave me relief for a long time. And then I started adding alcohol into my story, and it gave me relief. Now, the things that I'm sharing today is just my truth today. Now, it certainly might not have been my truth yesterday or last year or the year before that. And hopefully, I say hopefully in the sense of hopefully I'll still continue to be awakened to the new truth, which I believe is God. With all these things that happened in my life, what I've done over the years is I've minimized stuff. I became emotionally detached. I disassociated. I blocked. And I can say that even at 12 years sober, I still want to do the same thing, right? But, I drank and I added all kind of other stuff. Drinking was a solution to any problem I had. Think about, it didn't hurt. The fist didn't hurt so bad this time. You can drink through it and forget it. Or, the memories of molestation, or the not feeling enough, or all the insecurities that I had, it was just mind blowing. The lies or the belief systems that formed within my mind for years and years. And it gave me relief until it quit working. And the last 8 years, basically, I didn't draw a sober breath, not a sober moment. I passed out wasted. I woke up wasted. And I found myself sitting in a bed with two guys in front of me, begging them to blow my head off and put me out of my misery. And that was the best that I can do at that very moment. I couldn't imagine continuing to live the way I lived. And that was the only option that I thought. Well, thankfully, by this time, I was 44 years old. My dad had been sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous for over 30 years, and my mom had been in Al-Anon for over 40. And I called my little mommy and daddy, and I said, I need some help. And I remember when Dad picked me up and he brought me to that, the first thing he said, Belinda, are you a drug addict or an alcoholic? And my response was, I'm a drug addict, Daddy. Because I was. I mean, I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous has a singleness of purpose. I'm just sharing my delusion I was in. I really thought this particular drug, this one of all the many drugs and alcohol, I thought this one particular drug was my problem. If I can get off of that, I won't go to jail. If I can get off of that, I won't spend all my money. If I can get off of that. I mean, so this whole process of a lifetime brought on this delusion and these beliefs. And the doctor's opinion talks about basically I couldn't differentiate the true from the false. My life seemed the only normal one. I had no clue these things or this thinking or these perceptions that the way that I saw the world, I didn't know y'all didn't see it that way or feel that way. One of my favorite books, and I did ask Sam before the meeting if I can talk about other books, and he said yes. I have a few favorite ones, but one of the ones was Divine Therapy and Addiction by Thomas Keating. It opened up my eyes to a lot of the, everybody in meetings say, I don't feel like I fit in second grade. Well, nobody does, right? Nobody does. But there are some people, like Keating says, is that some people got the handbook, right? I didn't get the handbook. I did the best I could do. I didn't know other kids weren't getting molested. I hated it, but I didn't know that. I didn't know others didn't grow up in an alcoholic home. But with this, what all this stuff does is feeding the soul sickness. And I am trying to figure out ways to handle it, manipulate it, fix it, make it not happen, all of this. And I am so driven by self and I need relief. But when Dad picked me up and I said, I'm drug addict, but I say that because of the delusion I lived in. I had no clue I was an alcoholic. Thank God the book of Alcoholics Anonymous taught me that I am absolutely alcoholic way before I picked up one of those other things, right? And it says every alcoholic has one symptom in common. And my experience is I have this mind that tells me I can drink successfully and a body that repeatedly proves to me over and over again that I cannot. And so thankfully I did go to detox. I needed to medically detox. The book says we favor hospitalization for those who are still jittery or befogged. And I was one. I needed to be separated. It's not a requirement. And so I'm grateful I did go to a treatment center and we sat in that book Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. And they brought us through the first 103 pages and they did a little history and we did all the steps, not just through 3 or through 4. But the most important thing, they did set off with a good foundation, but the most important thing, they said, get a sponsor when you get out of here. Go to meetings and work the steps. And so all the people in here that I admire is passionate about Alcoholics Anonymous, the big book, recovery and helping others as I am. I have been graced with that passion and desire since I've gotten in here. I've fumbled along the way completely. So I did. I got out and I used my sponsor that I had in treatment for just a little bit. And I asked this old lady, I'm not sure if she's on here or not. I call her an old lady. My mom said, ask this one or this one. And so I asked the old lady. I couldn't figure out why this old lady could possibly help me. She's old, right? I mean, I just couldn't believe she could possibly help me. And actually, right the day before I was supposed to meet her, I had a niece that died. Oh my God, hi, Juanita. Sorry, I just checked out. I'm sorry. I usually don't even notice once I start talking, but her spirit shines so bright through. I'm sorry. So the day before I was supposed to meet this old lady, my niece died. She died to this disease. And so I called and canceled and then through the funeral and everything, I came up with a better plan, man. I was like, man, this lady's a little old. And there's this girl in my home group. I love the way she shares. She's young. She's younger than me, and I love this girl. We still have a beautiful relationship now. And I worked with her for a couple of months and then I thought she was too soft and I came up with another idea. I needed a hardcore and, I had that hardcore one for about a month and Gwen has been my sponsor blessed the first 3 months of my sobriety, and I'm so grateful for that. There's many people, many other women who have taken me through all the steps, and currently I'm doing some, I guess you didn't mind me saying this, I'm currently doing some work with Mary, and Mary has me sitting in 1, 2, and 3, and it's my first time. I'm just sitting in 1, 2, and 3. It was very uncomfortable, and I'm a doer, and just tell me what to do and what to write, what to pray, and I'm going to do it, right? And but then, so I'm grateful to be in that right now. But what Gwen had always done for me from the beginning is this piece of prayer and meditation. She did take me through the steps. You know, I have been through the steps multiple times. I believe we have to do an annual or semi-annual review. Now, anything I'm sharing, it's only because I was taught this stuff. In fact, one of my sponsees, before she knew about the big book much, she got, God, you're so smart. And I'm like, no, I'm not. God, you're so smart. I'm like, no, I'm not. And then she starts learning the literature. She's like, it's all in the book. And I'm like, yeah, it's all in the book. And so now it's kind of a joke between us. I'm so smart, you know, but I'm grateful for great teachers and guides. But, you know, so I got hooked up with Gwen, and she took me through the steps, and she took me through them in a prayerful manner. She has always been extremely, extremely passionate about meditation. And man, you know, one of the, well, yeah. I didn't feel like I could slow my mind down enough. I'm grateful. Like, so when I first got sober, yes, I was powerless over alcohol and all that other stuff. My life was unmanageable, obviously, because I had nothing when I came in, and I was dying from a soul sickness that I didn't even know that I had. And the desperation basically brought me to a place I was absolutely willing to believe there had to be something out there bigger than me. And the first thing that was for me was GOD, which was good orderly direction. And I actually started that in treatment. I wasn't going to gossip like all the other women were gossiping. And I have to say, you know, that was my first personality change. But of myself, I'm nothing. God did the work in that too, right? And then in step 3, I couldn't get it. I'm like, I wanted this deal so bad. I'm like, man, just what do I need to do to make this decision? Just tell, I mean, all my sobriety, even to this current deal, I want you to tell me what to do, what to write, what to pray, how to act. And if y'all just do that, then I'm going to have that path, you know, and God, man, and that gets me in trouble time and time and time again, you know. And so, you know, the first round at inventory, I didn't leave anything out, nothing out. I wrote it all down. I mean, but here's the deal. It was a little check sheet, you know, Joe McHugh way. I mean, that's the treatment center I went to, is his treatment plan. I did the checks, and I did, you know, shared it with somebody, and I did 6 and 7 in treatment. And they said, sit for an hour. I'm like, oh, that was what my first hour of trying to get quiet with God looked like. There was no quiet in that room, you know. Had the list of people I harmed. I was willing to make amends to them all. They taught me about 10, 11, and 12. You know, I know a lot of the words. I know the words in the big book. I can quote you some stuff. I can, you know, refer to some stuff. I can do all of that. But the harder part is, how am I applying this stuff in my life? Right. But I'm grateful. So after that treatment center, I got hooked up with that sponsor, and through this process, she took me through it all again. You know, she was always very passionate about meditation and getting quiet and how important that is. And she listened, and she didn't judge me. And I did inventory. We read all kind of other books about 6 and 7. You know, I can overread. And, you know, if I could just, I mean, Mary's told me for years, man, Belinda, this is not an intellectual process. It is a spiritual process, right? I do love to read. In fact, I did a workshop in person in February. In person, it was wonderful to be in person. And then I was trying to compile like a list of other books that I have so enjoyed, and the list was way longer than I thought it was. And but what other books do for me is they do give me some intelligence, right? I can learn some stuff in the books. But then how am I applying this stuff to my life on a daily basis, right? In my sobriety, I've been in and out of a bunch of relationships. My sex conduct the first 3 years was horrible. I was so asleep to all of that stuff, asleep to it, man. I thought it was just the next best thing, you know? I didn't know I was harming people. More importantly, I had no idea. I just needed somebody to love me. In fact, like in that, I mean, it talks about it in the article, Emotional Sobriety, but those doggone bedevilments. I mean, it took me a couple of years when I really looked at the bedevilments. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what brought me to my bottom to get me in here. Having trouble with personal relationships? Oh, check, right? Can't control my emotional nature. Man, I was so mean. Couldn't make a living. I was a feeling of useless. I mean, shoot, I hadn't worked before I got sober in years. I didn't have real friendships, none of that. I was full of fear, but I'd have told you I am not scared of anything. You know, and I was a swinging, punching fighter, you know, and now I know all I was frightened. All I was frightened. And the way my spiritual malady manifests is in anger, you know, and I look at these bedevilments and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so, but even currently, what does that look like? Mary said something to me today and I laughed because she's like, she'll ask me a lot, well, how's Tommy and how's your mom and how's this and this person and that person? You know, I'm like, good. But I didn't realize what she was doing. And it's so true. If I contemplated on that after we hung up, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if I ask myself, how's so-and-so, how is my mom? Well, right there, I'm going to get an idea of if there's any disturbance that's going on within me. How is my mom? And it depends on the way I'm going to think about this deal. A lot of the books I love to read is talking about the mind. In fact, on page 23 of the big book, it's going to start talking about the mind. My mind. So I believe my beliefs and the roles I assign people and myself, right, fuel the fear. So my thinking, so if I say a mom should always be kind and nurturing and loving and forgiving and cook you dinner, whatever role I want to attach on a mom, the minute she goes outside of what my belief is or the role that I assigned to her is, I'm disturbed. I am disturbed. The driver should. Right? The driver in front of me should be going the speed limit. A sponsee should not, right? If I start looking at this whole belief system and this thinking, it's going to fuel my disturbance that's within. When, you know, I love the inventory process, and the inventory process is a beginning of the healing of my soul. It helps me see, well, not necessarily when I write it, because my mind can't fix my mind with my own mind. But when I do write inventory, I can share it with someone. They can help me see it from an entirely different angle and see where I've gotten off this beaten path, this spiritual path. I am a fine example of morals and philosophical convictions galore. Can't live up to it, even though I would like to. Oh my God, every fiber of me, I want to be led by God in every second of every day. And I can't live up to it, even though I would like to. I really, really do. I try to self-will it, man, sometimes, you know. I try to self-will it. That's just the truth. But the inventory process always reveals some stuff to me, right? And it sees where I've gone against my morals and values. And I have this underlying need to be perfect and get it right. You see, there's the beliefs that's driving me again. The belief that I have to get it right. I have to be perfect. Heck, the belief that there is a right and wrong. You know what I mean? And these belief systems fuel me. They fuel me. And so one of the things that I'm so grateful for, and I really do believe that helps with some type of balance, right? And when I say balance, I mean more like that's where my will's aligned with God. These principles that I live by, people like Gary and Don and others, they talk about this principle inventory, and the principle is a moral rule or belief that I believe is either right or wrong, and it's influencing my actions. I know myself and so many other women that I work with, we come in here with, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough, smart enough, pretty enough, young enough, whatever enough, right? And that belief is going to be the driving force behind my action or my inaction. But the problem for me is it's so in my unconscious. This is how Gary describes it. It's so deeply ingrained in me, I don't even challenge it. It just is, right? This 56 years of my life of beliefs, and they fuel my life. So for me, that principle inventory is always life changing. Heck, I can do resentment inventory on this one girl. And the last time I literally had to write on it on this, instead of writing about her again, I wrote that I have to protect myself and people I care about. So if I believe that, what do you think my emotional sobriety is looking like? Right? I am going to run the show, control, try to manage, manipulate, and all of that. My problem on a daily basis is a step one problem, because I think I have power to do it all. I am absolutely powerless, man. The book says there is one that has all power, and that one is God, not me. If there's one that has all power, that means I have none. God works in and through me. I remember telling Gwen not too long ago, I kept saying, I just want to love Tommy, man. And this two-way prayer stuff I do, and I keep getting love Tommy, love Tommy, love Tommy, just love, love, all the words I know. Love and tolerance is my code, right? All the love words. Love, I'm supposed to, I need to, I should. And she looks at me and she said, Belinda, she says, you're incapable of loving Tommy. And part of me was almost offended. I'm like, what? I didn't do that to her though. I just like, She said, it's God who loves Tommy through you. And I was like, well, oh my God, it is so true. If I believe, like I'm convinced that when I'm working with another alcoholic, God works in and through me. I'm powerless, man. My life on my own power is a mess. And I absolutely believe God works in and through me to help other alcoholics, right? It's that whole living life. I tend to live life, and I did it before I got here, and I've done it for years, but this whole transition of slowly, so I lived life the complete opposite of everything the St. Francis prayer says. I want you to love me. I want you to forgive me, because if you just love me, I'm going to be okay. If you forgive me, I'm going to be okay. If you comfort me, I'm going to be okay. And only by getting connected to that power, right? That power working in and through me, it happened automatically. Because when I'm trying to love Tommy, or love mama, be of service to mom, I can come up, oh my God, I come up with a good plan around my mom. My mom's 85 and she's got some back stuff going on. And okay, and this time I got in my two-way prayer. Oh my God, yes, go be with, I'm going to Lafayette. She's 2 hours away. I'm going to go be with mom, and I'm going to go sit with her. And she loves to play cards. But in my two-way prayer, I'm getting, go spend some time with your mom. Be present for your mom. I'm getting some beautiful intuitive thought, right? And it's just a beautiful, I'm hearing this. I'm writing this. I know it's coming from the presence, right? And so I get in my car and, I'm heading that way, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to play a game with her. I'm going to go in, I'm going to sit with her, see how she's doing, ask her about her day and see what she wants to do. Maybe we can eat together, Yeah. Oh, she'd really like a game, man. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. I walk in the door 2 hours later. Good plan, right? Good plan, right? I mean, I can mess up a good plan, man. I get there 2 hours later and I walk in and say, hey, mama, how you doing? You know, oh, I'm good. Man, will you look at my phone? I don't know what's wrong with my phone. Will you look at it for me? And I'm like, oh, okay, mama. It's already not going according to plan. I didn't mean I was going to go help her with her phone and her iPad. That aggravates me, right? So even a good plan, I know God wanted me to do all that. But somewhere after that, I was trying to manifest the good plan on my own power. I did not play cards with my mom that day, by the way. I mean, the plan went to crap. You know, man, I'm so grateful though. I have absolutely had personality changes, not only sufficient to bring about recovery, but personality changes that is healing and transforming the soul sickness in the inside. And when I'm in that place of neutrality, and I absolutely 100% am convinced that I am powerless, it is the power that is working in me that is doing this, and the grace happens automatically. That's when I can breathe, right? That's when I can breathe. So that one book I was talking about, Divine Therapy and Addiction, beautiful book, beautiful book, beautiful book. Richard Rohr around breathing underwater, spirituality and the 12 steps. In fact, currently, and I've read Divine Therapy is probably the third most read book out of any books I've read. Big book, 12 and 12, Divine Therapy by Thomas Keating. Next is probably Breathing Underwater by Richard Rohr. In fact, yesterday, I had signed up a couple months ago for a course, and it just started yesterday, and it's going to be a lot of work. And like a lot of people here, and the transition for me during COVID, it kind of, first of all, when COVID first started to happen, I got out of balance. I was way busy and way too busy. And, you know, it was kind of a beautiful thing. And I was thriving off it because people were like realizing, oh my God, I'm dying. I need some help. And I spent hours and hours and hours on my phone a day. And it did get a little bit out of balance. And then after a couple of months of that, I was diving into lots of prayer and meditation, right? And so the last, I'm going to say year and a half, because I've always, thank God, I've had sponsor and spiritual guides that's always talked about this important piece of prayer and meditation. I believe currently it is important that I have got to, on a regular basis, watch for the disturbances that go on with me in step 10. It is a must. My sponsors always taught me I can pray and meditate all I want, but I have got to continue to self-examine. Now, for me, man, I can disregard a lot of stuff that should be looked at in a 10-step. So I'm grateful for that nightly review, right? But I think one of the biggest important pieces for my recovery that I really, really do love doing most days is this morning time. The last year and a half, it's been diving into two-way prayer. One of the favorite books that I went through last year is Practicing the Here and Now, Being Intentional with Step 11 by Herb K. It's a lot of work, you know, but it's beautiful. It goes through the steps, and basically it's talking about looking at the steps in a prayerful manner. There's questions and intentions and a consistency, and it just opened me up to just even more unlimited possibilities. So currently in my morning time, I was up at 4:00 this morning, and I was able to spend 3 hours reading, meditating, and writing. I don't work. I am in a place that I can work with a lot of people. Normally I don't get up at 4, but when I do, I just like, all right, God wants me to get up and do some stuff. And I'm not saying, but look, when I first got sober, it was 15 minutes, you know. When I was working, it might have been 45 total or less, but I had to begin somewhere. this transition. So what is two-way prayer? What I did, oh God, one of the things I love the most for this last year and a half, I broke down tons of prayers. Let's just talk about the St. Francis prayer, for instance. Like I would start off, let's say this morning, and today I'm just going to focus on, Lord, make me a channel of thy peace. That's it. And I actually, with that every day, I would look up, what does Lord really mean? What does make mean? Channel mean? Peace mean? And I would look the words up in the dictionary, and I would come up with a meaning to me. And I would take that piece, and then I would say a prayer asking God in my own way, please make me a channel of thy peace. And I'd say that prayer, and then I'd pause and meditate just for a few minutes, and I'd get quiet, and then I write as if God speaks to me. So the prayer would start off with my Father, or our Father, or good morning, God, right? And after I get quiet and listen, some days it's like my precious child. Some days it's just my child or my daughter. And then I write whatever I hear, because I have, for my whole sobriety, got lots of intuitive thought and I disregard it. The discernment, I am a master minimizer. I believe that God definitely has and can continue to heal me in this area of my life. I wished I could wave my magic wand and I would be healed, you know. But spending that time and listening, and then trying to follow through or be what I'm hearing. So sometimes throughout my day, I have to go back and read it. When I'm doing these things, one of the prayers my sponsor always told me from the beginning, and I use it often. God, help me die to self so that you can live in and through me. And oh my God, when God graces me with that, I can't even begin to put words on it. Working with other people, I believe the step 12 says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, the result of the steps. I had it at the beginning, even though I didn't know I have it. I continue to have them every time I'm in the steps. The steps bring me to the solution. It gets me connected to the power that relieves me of my alcoholism and helps me breathe again, helps me be of maximum service to God and my fellows. I literally chuckle because I literally, like, nothing else is coming. So that means I know that I'm done. I want to thank each one of you for being here. And I want to thank those of you who have just been so precious in the transformation and healing in my life. I love y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Belinda. That was beautiful. So, yeah, I took a lot of notes. I think it's really commendable, and I just think it's really neat how involved you are in that seeking part, and then to be able to talk about that connection in a way, the spiritual connection in a way that's really real. I think people get afraid of it if it gets too real. You know, it's like all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, I'm down with this. But when we start talking about intuition, you start talking about, you know, receiving inspiration and intuition. You know, I think, you know, part of the time I have to write off half of those people as crazy shit. I don't really want to talk about that. But the big book talks about us living on a plane of inspiration. Like, I'm supposed to be doing this all the time. Like, I'm supposed to be floating along on a plane of inspiration, you know, receiving an intuitive thought and action and two-way prayer and all that stuff. That scares the shit out of a lot of people, especially, you know, now, or you know, it's society's become so secular, and the religion of the day is kind of therapy. That is not that that's bad, but it's just there's a lot of people who are really afraid to talk about that and talk about how you also talked a lot about principles and belief systems and inventorying those and how important that is to do. So later, I'm going to ask you some questions about that. But because of where we're at now, pick a few people on here to share. We usually have somebody pick 2 or 3 people to share, and then we'll open it up. So you just have to kind of look through the Hollywood squares and call on some people.
So pick, or do they raise their hands? Let me look. Nobody raises
No,
their
you
hand.
pick them. You pick them.
Oh my gosh. Wait. Clint.
Oh yeah, Clint.
There's Clint.
Hey, Belinda. My name is Clint Jones. I am an alcoholic, and actually, my name tonight's Linda Jones. But
Always was.
thanks, Belinda. Belinda, you are amazing to me. You know, we've known each other a long time, and you know, I've heard. What I love about you is every time I hear you, I learn more. I learn more about where you're at in your practice and what you do. And you know, it seems like I should know better. I should know you perfectly by now, but I don't. And that's why I love you so much. And wow, that was, you know, what happens, you know, and then, golly, I guess is the reason I come to these things is because I can just see how inadequate my program is all the time. I pick up all these great things to try to do, and what I heard, one of the loudest things I heard you say is because I totally relate to it all the time. Is I can tell you about all the things I know, but if you're following me around, I'm sure not applying a lot of that stuff in my life, you know, and this last, you know, I mean, I think we all can say that we're all going to look back on this past time. I don't even know what we're going to call it, but whatever it was pretty amazing to. I mean, it's sure, you know, there's a place that says, you know, that I need to take all these things that come at me like this and be grateful because they're just God's way of showing me that I've got so much more room to grow, and they're all life lessons that, you know, if I'm disturbed, it's because I really need to move forward with learning how to be better and closer. So I just love that you. I mean, you just knocked it out of the park. It was like one of the best ones that. There's been a lot of great people on this. You know, we got to thank Sam for putting this all together. It's been a wonderful format. I dig it so much, but you shine tonight. I'm really proud that I can call you my friend, and I'll stop with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Clint.
I keep calling on people.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So I see my sponsors on there. Gwen, can you hear us? She might not be able to. Gwen? Yeah. Do you want to share? Yes. Gwen? You have to unmute though.
It looks like you're clairvoyantly like channeling her right now, Belinda. Is she on the meeting, or is she?
She is.
Is she supposed to be speaking through you? I see that you're growing some marijuana back there in your foyer. So I'm just kidding.
All right. We'll skip Gwen for now. Oh, look, Mary's smiling so big. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah. Hey, Mary.
Hey there, Mary Thayer, alcoholic. Well, that was wonderful, Belinda, really wonderful. It reminded me about what Don Pritz said, that, and it's kind of fun to watch people grow. I'm looking like this because I have an enormous blood bleed in my eye. So I look as though I'm like a devil. I have a little evil eye tonight, folks. That's it. So anyway, um, Don, one of the first times he came up to Maine, he was doing a workshop and he had his wife with him, and this Don Pritz, for those who don't know. And he introduced his wife, and everybody, you know, welcomed her and stuff. And then he said something that I've never forgotten. He said, every morning I wake up and I look over at Jackie and I wonder what God did with her last night. And it was such a profound thing, because I started to realize that we're not the same people we were last week. You know, I've now got a devil eye. I mean, you know, who knows? So I'm having to live with vanity issues. So anyhow, what I've had the privilege, I mean, the first time I ever spoke in Louisiana, you were my hostess. God, you were crazier than you know what, weren't you? Now that I'm thinking of it, it was a very interesting time. It was wonderful. And then you gave me the privilege and honor to come to Lafayette and be with the Fought South, and just loved that family too. And you had changed. And each year, you know, we've had the gift of kind of running into each other. And each time that we do, I have to listen to her for a while, because I want to know what God's been doing with her. And it's not like she's sitting around not doing anything. I mean, she's gaining all this great intellect, and it's wonderful. And you remind me of myself. My sponsor one time said to me, I don't want you to read anymore. Not for a month. You're not reading. You're not going to write anything. You're just going to sit and feel. And I didn't want to feel. I wanted to know, because then if I know, I'm safe. And, you know, I did that for over 20 years. And I realized that I was missing the heart of this. And yet the people and the heroes, my heroes, it was their heart I felt. It was the energy. You nailed it when you opened your mouth and you said, I don't know about you, but I can feel some energy come in. And now you're feeling that energy from a presence that's present. It's really present all day long. But we have to clear away whatever it is that's blocking that presence. And it takes a while to settle down, because my mind wants to tell me it's this, and it's really not this, it's that, I find. I'm so impressed with seeing souls that really want this. I think that's the biggest gift I've seen on these Zoom things. There is a different plane, Sam. You're right. It's intuitive plane. I've come to rely upon it. I have no idea what I'm going to do or say most of the time. But I do have some guidelines. I'm here to do the drill. I know I can get up and do the drill. And again, as Don Pritz would say, you know, we're here to do God's work, not his job. And my job was that I thought my job was that I had to know the end solution to everything. That's God's job. Every time I get out of whack, it's just because I have an attachment to how everything's supposed to look if I do this. I think by doing the things that I did and what I hear Belinda doing, and I remember Hugh Douglas said, you know, I would be reading in this book and that book, and I still do the same thing. It's not that I'm not doing all the stuff that you're doing or anything, but I think God keeps us busy until we open up. I think there's going to be a crack in that acorn cap. There's going to be some light that comes through all of those set ideas and values that you thought you had to, should, bad, good, all. We have to play cards for mom to be all right. She just really likes the idea you could fix that thing. I identify with her completely. Absolutely. So I'm in for the ride. It's limitless. I don't want to arrive any place. In fact, I don't think I'm going to arrive any place. But I really want to remain a seasoned beginner. I want to feel this thing. I don't want to just know it. I want to touch your heart. I want you to touch my heart. And I was too afraid before for that. I couldn't let you guys in. You might hurt me. with my background and your background, we've been damaged. There's been a lot of violation. It's not easy to grow up in these halls. But after a while, I realize I am the one that has made the self-made prison. And you guys. I can remember early on when I used to think, oh, if my daughter would only love me. You know, if I could only mend that relationship. My family would do this, my family would do that. And I've had a lot of low spots and trials in intimate relationships. I really have. And what I realized is that when I was worrying about whether or not my daughter loved me, Belinda, you could be loving me, and I would just say, thanks very much. It's nice that you love me, but I really need it over here. You see the direction? Oh my God. I have received so much love in my life. I could never pay back. I could never pay back all the gifts that I have received. And you know, if you look at all the promises in the book, just take a look at these promises. There's nothing to do with externals. Do you know that? It has all to do with being relieved from fear. So my life is not motivated so much from fear anymore. It's more being motivated by faith. And that is, I don't know. I think that's the process. And there's areas of my life that I'm not feeling connected. It's just that I didn't even know. Somebody said it. I don't know who it was, you or Sam. Somebody said something about sometimes we don't even know what we're blocking. We don't know. And perhaps that's why I have you sitting in 1, 2, and 3. I think your mind has an idea on what it is. I'm not too sure. I believe in your mind most of the time. It's always got a great story going along with it. But I really felt that there's a shift happening. And I think God works slowly with us and keeps us, you know, in line, and especially someone with the enthusiasmos that your soul has. I don't have any doubt that you're going to get enough candlelight to find the real source, your real sponsor, which is God deep down inside. Thank you, sweetie. It was wonderful to hear you. Nice to talk to you. Give my love to Tommy and your mom.
Thank you. So Belinda, we got some hands raised. Do you have one you want to call on before we start calling on hands raised? All right, so we're going to start off. I think it looks like we have Lee and Jennifer, Dan from Santa Fe.
Hi, everybody. It's Jennifer here in Santa Fe. I'm the one who wants to talk. And
Hey, Jennifer.
hi, everybody. It's so good to see you all. Belinda, I loved your share so much, and I'm really glad I got to hear it because you touched my heart right where I'm sitting today. And you also kind of, you know, you helped me to kind of get honest with this thing that came up to me with me today. And I'm going to tell you all about that. But I did want to address before I began that, first of all, Mary, you don't have a devil's eye. You look great, actually. No one can see your eye. It looks fabulous. So I did want to start with that. But, you know, my background is, you know, I came into AA and my whole shtick was to be like the world's greatest mom. And oh my God. And by the way, another thing we have in common is I've also been, you know, forbidden to read for periods of time that I think way too much and very difficult to do to put down those books. And by the way, I'm going to get the book that you mentioned by Thomas Keating. It sounds so good. Mary, don't roll your eyes at me. But, you know, when I first got sober, a woman named Lee Schmucker was the woman who got me going in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had gone through this divorce and had 3 little kids, and I got to be the mom that I always wanted to be. I had my daughters, and their father married a very competent, smart, you know, woman who's really shown up well for my daughter. And you think that would be great. Well, I hated it. I did not like that. And so at the birthdays, you know, I'm making the birthday cake. Well, it turns out she had made one that looked like a kitty, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hate her. So I had gone back to Lee Schmucker and complained about, you know, their stepmom. And I remember Lee looking at me and saying, if it's love coming at your daughters, Jennifer, you get out of the way. And, you know, she said it very firmly. And, you know, that's been my practice. I mean, that's been part of my practice in getting sober. You know, my primary persona is really this big mom, you know, thing. And so recently, just today, I got to, now one of my daughters has this adorable little grandson, and I've been able to go over, you know, things gotten mended between me and this daughter, and I get to go over and I get to help her out and spend time with my grandson, and I just love it. And so I found out while I was over there, and I'm playing with Obi, my little grandson, that their stepmother had gone over the night before to read him a story and go to bed. And I swear you'd never know I had any time in the program. I mean, I didn't externalize it, but I noticed that come up, you know, that same old pattern came up, like, who in the hell is she thinking, butting into my family again, you know, and that's where I go. And that's just, you know, it's just so old. And so listening to you has really, I love the fact that you talked about these conceptions that drive me, that I'm so attached to these conceptions. And I loved your, you know, the way you described two-way prayer. I heard it mentioned just recently, but I wasn't really sure what it was. And I think that would be a good thing to try. But obviously, this is a thing I need to look at again. So everything, I've really taken in everything that you talked about, and it was very helpful to me. And I want to thank you. Hopefully we'll meet someday. That's it.
Thanks, Jennifer.
So raise your hands if you'd like to share. We'd love to call on you. And while we don't have any hands raised, that's common. People don't ever raise their hands. You have to just kind of block them. Nobody wants to share after a lot of people have shared like that. They just want to listen. But so here's one thing, Belinda, before we have any more hands raised, why don't you talk a little bit about that principles thing and inventorying those belief systems and what that looks like when you started to do it, and, you know, what it looks like to replace those or to, you know, I'll open it up to you.
Yeah. So the first time I did it, I was 3 years sober, and a woman was bringing me and another lady through the steps literally in 2 weekends. And it was actually just huge. And that first list looked like no one can hurt me. I'm not good enough. If it's going to get done right, I have to do it. But yet the same belief is, you know, I'm not going to get it right, or I'm not enough. You know, it just this whole kind of just a bunch of thoughts that I didn't even know that were fueling my life. Right. So if I look at, like, let's just talk about I'm not good enough, for instance. So I'm not good enough would go in column 1. And that's the principle, because the book says we list people, institutions, and principles. And so then column 2, what causes me to believe that? Well, like the first thing that came when I did that one was, you know, my dad used to say stuff like in second grade, you can do better, because I might have had a B or a C or something. But out of his mouth into my fine mind, I just formed this belief, well, that means I'm not good enough. That constant separation of, right? And so with that, I can start seeing whose voice, who said so, where did I learn these things, and just have in a general way, an idea, because it's all really kind of a lie anyway. And then I can go into column 3 and see how whatever belief it is I have, right? Whatever one, like I have to protect myself, or I'm not good enough. In column 3, I can see how it affects my self-esteem, security, ambitions, personal relations, sex relations, and pride. And then I usually go into a little detail, because if I don't believe I'm good enough, well, I have no self-esteem. Oh, but yet you can bet, you can pull out the Rolodex, and I'm going to pull out all different kind of thoughts, because to feel or think I'm not good enough is an ick on the inside. But then I'm going to have to try to pull out another belief in order to make the ick go away. And then, I mean, it just affects every area of my life, right? And then when I go into column 4, I can take whatever belief I have and see how it's going to, how this belief is going to fuel, obviously, the fears. The fears are going to be driving me into my selfishness, dishonesty, selfish, dishonesty, self-seeking, frightened. I can see where I'm to blame. And then you can see the major other character defects of control and manipulation and self-reliance and all of that, right? And it's like any other inventory. Now that I have it on paper and did it in a prayerful way, what happened automatically was I started to awaken when this was showing up in my life again. I could start trying to recognize the fear. And a lot of this has to come with prayer and meditation, intuitive thought from God to try to awaken. And that goes back to examining the disturbances. I mean, that's kind of like a quick.
Right. And for people who don't have any or haven't had experience or might be new, you're talking about doing that in your inventory in the 4-step process. And you're talking about naming those belief systems in column 1 as, we were resentful at, and people, institutions, and then principles. So that's what you're talking about. And then you go to the cause, effects, hurts, threatens, and then put it through the rest of the columns.
Yeah.
Awesome. What are some of the most recent ones you've dealt with?
The principles?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I have to protect myself. Yeah, I have to protect myself. And so that belief, it still can fuel my life because long story short, if I believe I have to protect myself, well, then I'm not going to have real intimacy in relationships into me see, right? Because, oh, no, you're not getting beyond this protective coat of armor. I have to protect myself. And I mean, it's just like I pull these things out of thin air, playing God and doing so, but it is going to fuel it. I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm going to stay and feel separate from God and my fellows again, protect myself at all costs. You know what I mean?
It's interesting when you say protect myself, because it's like, with what? What are you going to protect yourself with? And it's just more self-will tools when you're talking about that.
Yeah. And I really believe it's just 56 years of beliefs that I tweaked over time. I know it sounds crazy, but in the same sense, I was saying I'm not scared of nothing, but why am I saying I have to protect myself? The beliefs are usually pulled out of lies. They're all, I can't say all lies, but my belief systems are pulled out of lies. How about, you got a significant other and your significant other, you say something, they look at you like, well, what's the first thought? Oh, I know what that look means, right? Right. I mean, I see it all the time. I do it. Somebody gives you that look and all of a sudden I think I know what it means. So there's the belief. I think I know everything, man. There's the bottom line. I think I know everything about myself, about others, how the world should be, and what I need to do. And it gets me in trouble all the time. It's in the unknowing and the unlearning of all this stuff. And when I get those beautiful moments of that and connected to the power, it's in the not knowing. The mystery.
Not having to propulse.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Kurt?
Yeah, Kurt.
Mary Thayer's laughing. Yeah. Well, Linda Jones, it's nice to see you tonight. Belinda, thanks a lot. I'll just keep it real short because, I was thinking about when you were sharing, I was thinking about us sitting in that restaurant was it Minnesota or Wisconsin or, yeah. And you, me, and Erica were having a conversation. And you could just feel the electricity going around, right? I mean, we were just, it's like that conversation evoked our thought life to be on a higher plane. Like we were all, I don't even remember what we were talking about. It had something to do with what you were talking about tonight though, right? And I got this thing and I say it quite often. Thank God I'm not suffering from what's not happening anymore. Because when I was suffering from what what was not happening, I kept trying to get out of it, which gave more proof and validity to the fact that I was in it. And I was stuck in a loop. And the problem with that loop is you don't know you're in that loop until somebody mirrors that back to you. And I think that was part of like the emotional sobriety, that emotional sobriety, that link. Maybe I said this last week. We were talking about this as far as, did I say this about Ramana Maharshi last week? What we were talking about was this. Somebody asked Ramana Maharshi, who is a Hindu saint, he said, how do you treat others? Which is a very intellectual, rational question, right? Well, he didn't answer it like given some moral or philosophical code at all. He answered it from a spiritual perspective. And you know what his answer was? There are no others. See, that's emotional sobriety. Now, we can point at it and talk about it, but I love your energy. I just, since I met you at FOTS years ago, I just love your energy. So we look forward to coming down there and seeing you. We had the flight booked.
I know. I can't.
We were on our way, and then COVID hit. We had to cancel. So that's all I got. Thanks. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Belinda.
Love you.
While there haven't been as many people raising their hands lately, I'm just going to read a little bit of this out of the big book. I really like this, and I'm going to ask you a question and have you expound on this a little bit. This is one of my favorite paragraphs. It's on page 50 to 51. It says, here are thousands of men and women, worldly indeed. They flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude towards that power, and to do certain simple things, there's been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of total failure of their human resources, they found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction flowed into them. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seemingly futility of existence, they showed the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. Leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them when many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is indeed, sorry, They show how the change came over them when many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is today the most important fact of their lives. They present a powerful reason why one should have faith. I love that paragraph so much. And it sounds like you've given a lot of tools about seeking that power and given a lot of, talked about some inspiration from that power. Do you feel like you've really experienced the power? And if so, what do you feel like that's like? Can you describe it a little bit? Describe your interaction with it?
100%, absolutely. 100%, absolutely.
Did you believe that before? Did you have any belief systems prior to this?
Spiritual or human? Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, like I was raised in several different religions and married in a few different ones and believed in other ones. And, but how do you adequately put words on it? The experiences, repeated experience by a consistent practice is indescribable, man. And I'll put expectations on that too, man. But like, just one, like not separate at all. I don't know how to adequately describe it. It is some of the best, most profound meditations. I believe God reveals things to me in a way that I can feel and understand. I would live in that space on a regular basis if I could, and I strive for that. And sometimes I have to set my expectations because I want that all the time, and I forget they use the words like, I don't feel connected. I don't say that anymore, because that's even a lie. If I believe that we're all one, I'm always connected. I think also is that it's almost like an after effect. In fact, in that the article, when it says talking about the byproduct, my dad told me that when I first got sober, because I said, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. And he would say it's a byproduct of living the right kind of life. And I didn't know what that meant for a long time. I had no idea what that meant. And to me, living the right kind of life is trying to be led by a spirit versus driven by me and my thinking and my fear, self-delusion, self-seeking. It's incredible. And in fact, Mary told me, you got to milk it, just milk it, and I forget to do that sometimes because I have unrealistic expectations. Sometimes I milk it. Hopefully that answered your question.
Oh yeah, that's a difficult question. Anyway, sorry, I was having my all my headphones and all my stuff's linked up with my phone somehow, and these people are on a group chat. And while I was trying to read that, they just started going bling, 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 and I was trying to turn it off. Drive me crazy. But so Veronica would like to share. Veronica.
Hi, thanks, Sam. Hi, Belinda. I raised my hand and then I lowered it because I chicken shitted out, but I'm going to say it anyway. The things that I resonate with a lot of what you say, and even from, our chat last week, I recognize in me, I've been a ball buster all my life. I've been pushing and pushing and pushing. And, apart from the fact that it's exhausting, is that it's really driven by fear. I really relate to what I also recognize in myself, I'm looking at, like you talk about beliefs in the inventory process of the fourth step. And me too, I'm driven by a set of beliefs and they're so ingrained, I don't even question them. In fact, until they're brought up, I didn't even know that was a belief. I don't even know what I thought it was. It just was. The intuition piece, I know that I've heard God speak to me, and I don't know why I hear it. And yet for some reason I either dismiss it or I don't seem to be able to sustain it or integrate it on a daily basis. I hear God, saying to me, there's nothing left to figure out, just experience. I hear God saying to me, meditation isn't for you, Veronica, it's for me. It's how I get to talk to you. I hear God, even this was towards the end of last year, is that do less, feel more. That was my only job. There was probably a period of 2 months there where I just tried to concentrate on the feeling, because I'm not a feeling person. The one thing that I wanted to bring up, which is a real biggie, if it's really hit me, when you talk about Tommy and you're like, I'm loving Tommy, I love Tommy, how do I love Tommy? Or, I want to love Tommy more, or whatever the words that you were saying. And I'm thinking, Mishka, good boy. My dog decides as soon as I start to speak, he's digging a hole to China. All right. And I think one of the things that upsets me about myself is I don't feel my heart. I feel a lot of emotions. I feel, I can laugh, I can cry, I can do a lot of things, but I don't feel my heart in the way that I hear other people talk about feeling their hearts. So while you were talking about, loving Tommy, and I thought, well, if I can't feel love or give love or be loving, does it even really matter? Because God will feel, give, and offer love to others through me. And I find that really overwhelming. It does two things. It's like, first of all, it might not even be my job, even if in the absence of me being able to do that, I don't even have to worry about it because God's going to do it through me. So I don't know why. I don't know why that in particular really resonates with me. I haven't unpacked it yet. All I know is that I'm very emotional around it. I think also the line that you say, you know, or that you said, you know, that you pray one of your prayers to God, you know, that God help me die to self, you know, so that you can live through me. I think that's the words, or close to those words. You know, if that's what emotional sobriety is, and I'm just really through the gift of having the opportunity to attend these meetings on Thursday night for however long I have been, 6 months now or so. It's kind of clumsy and it's clunky, but I'm starting to get a sense of what life might be like with emotional sobriety and emotional health and emotional, you know, sober love, sober health, you know, sober way of interacting with people. And it's quite a gift. It's like every time I read the last line of the letter, even, you know, and given a place in the bright sunshine, or is it the quiet sunshine? I can't remember now. I've read it. You'd think I'd know. It just chokes me up. So anyway, that's really what I wanted to say. It's really, you've really given me food for thought. It's really very touching. Thanks, Belinda.
Thank you so much, Veronica. So I've got some questions from people, and one of them was, what does your meditation time look like? And they want you to describe a little bit about your routine now. What do you do? What does Belinda do when she communes with God in the morning?
Yeah, so currently, and it's been, you know, so I've always switched it up. Okay, I've just done guided, not guided, quiet, mindful, open-minded. I mean, I'm a switch it up kind of girl. It just is. So, but currently I am spending, like, I'm doing contemplative prayer or centering prayer, whatever words you want to use on it. So for instance, this morning, I just focused, you know, I did the two-way prayer. I always do that though. So I'll do whatever form of writing, meditate for a brief moment. I listen. And then after, currently I'm timing it for 20 minutes, man. I got to time it right now. 20 minutes can still be a challenge for me, but in that time, what I'm currently doing, this morning, because of the reading, breathing underwater, right? And the question was, what is it like to breathe underwater? So I had a little water sound in the background, and I sat quietly for those 20 minutes. And I was just really thinking about breath and God and I being one breath. And anytime my mind wanders, because it always does, thank God a lot less than it used to, then I just bring it back to the breath. And I just literally would trying to focus on breathing and being one with God. And then usually in the afternoon, so about a week ago in my two-way prayer, I got a real clear message from God, Belinda, at 4:30 every day, there's the best time for you, meditate 20 minutes. So that was a week ago, because I would do 5 and 10 minutes in the afternoon and then nighttime meditation. But so I got clear direction, and out of the past 7 days, I've probably done it 3 for 20 minutes at 4:30, right? And then at night, after I do my nightly review, which I do most nights, I'm not as faithful with my nightly. I'm very consistent with prayer meditation in the morning. And then I usually try to do a 10 or 20 minute meditation.
I'm glad God inspired you to wake up at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, it's just, no, I don't sleep well. So yeah, but when it's an excuse, I was like, all right, God, I guess you want me to get up and spend more time with you.
So two-way prayer, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know anything about that. Yeah.
So Dr. Bob in Oxford Group used to do two-way prayer, and there's many different pamphlets and all of this stuff. There's a great website called twowayprayer.org. It's very challenging and fearful for a lot of people at first, but bottom line, what two-way prayer is you can either read a reading or a scripture or, just a phrase and then make a prayer out of it, right? And then the suggestion is you just take a couple of breaths and then write as if God speaks to you. So it's like you're talking to God in the prayer, and then you write as if he speaks to you. And people are like, well, how do you know if God speaks to you? Well, you usually check it by the 4 absolutes: the unselfishness, purity, love, and selflessness,
Honesty.
purity, honesty. Yes, go figure. I forgot honesty. But to simplify it, I can talk for that on hours. There's that twowayprayer.org has some good stuff, but it's frightful. My email's on there, soberbelinda@gmail.com. If anybody has any questions, I don't have a problem sending people what my writing look like. I email it, text it, I don't care. There are probably some I wouldn't, but most of them I would.
It's funny how much of our step work and stuff just directs us right to God, but in a lot of areas we're afraid to share about that. It's like you want to point to it, or you want to say that I felt the warmth from the group, or I want to talk about a higher power, I want to talk about that. But some of this is like your direct experience with God. You're supposed to go all in with this power greater than yourself. And then people are a little bit afraid. And I think that one of the really jarring experiences when you're at the other end of a step assignment and you find out that it's real, or you're really convinced, like, holy shit, this is something other than just oh man, like, do I really? And you start listening and get those revelatory experiences in that writing or in that meditation, or get that piece of inspiration. And it turns out to be really incredible. And I think a lot of people are afraid to talk about that, and I'm glad that you did tonight.
Yeah, I don't think it's talked about as much. Like, I would get intuitive thought a lot, and I tried two-way prayer off and on and different writing and stuff, but I would always have been meditator. Even at least sometime, and the intuitive thought comes, but as soon as I get my butt off the chair and go about my day, literally. So I found that now that I write it, it's almost like I will put asterisks by some action items, or some doing, or some being, like on Awakening, when it talks about, God direct my thinking.
That's
I can talk
awesome.
about meditation for hours. I love prayer, meditation.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
A lot of people don't do it. You hear people in AA all the time. They talk about how they don't do it because they go, oh, I don't meditate because I have a really busy mind. It's like, yeah, no shit. I think a lot of people are really scared. A lot of people are scared of what comes up when they meditate. It's like, don't be scared of that. All kind of crazy shit comes out of the brain when you meditate.
And I know people who have had a lot of emotion come up in meditation, and it's been real scary for them. Yeah. And it's a healing process, Yeah. I like Insight Timer is a great app that has thousands of free meditations, guided. There's one that called the course, Learn How to Meditate in 7 Days. Real simple breath,
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing and being so open with everyone. What about you, Juanita? What do you have to say to all that?
Oh, my sweet Juanita.
Hey, Belinda, thank you so much. Quickly, I really enjoyed your share. I really did. And what I loved especially was that you were not afraid to talk about God, which is what this is all about anyway, right? That's really all we have. It's like we have 12 steps, and the majority talk about God and the power in some way or another. And and that's exactly what you did, and I loved the way you started it, which was breathe in love and breathe out fear. And that's one of my favorite things to do, so I really loved you doing that. And it's so funny because it must have been about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had this thought, and I'd been talking to some people about let go and let God, and how we making the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And I thought, most people don't want to do that. Really, who in their right mind wants to turn their will and their lives over to the care of God? I mean, you don't know what in the hell you're going to get, right? So who really wants to do that? And I get that fairly consistently with people I work with and people I talk with. And then it must have been either yesterday or the day before, I was coming out of meditation, doing the two-way prayer as well. I get great stuff out of two-way prayer, but I'm walking out of the house because I'm going to go to Albuquerque to visit my grandkids. And all of a sudden I had this thought, you are so full of it. You don't want to turn your will and your life over to the care of God, because you know, it's like, I don't want to. I don't want to do it. I mean, I do, but there's that part where it's like, nah, I got it. And the lie I will tell myself is that that's not who I am and that's not what I'm doing. And boy, to see that and see it so clearly for myself. And that's the whole thing. I think emotional sobriety is a thing of recognizing those places where it's like, I'm going to be that bull in the china shop, man. I'm going to just, go through my life and do what I want to do and to hell with God. And I don't even know I'm doing that, So, and then it's about bringing God in, breathe in the love, breathe out the fear, and going to God and asking God for direction and guidance. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you. Thank everybody for coming tonight. And do you have anything else you'd like to add, Belinda, before we close it up?
Just see if you want to sit with this, because this is what I do. I live in the delusion. I have power, and the illusion, I'm controlling it.
Okay.
But I have
That's
no
good.
power.
That's a good challenge. I like that. That's a good thing to consider. Thank you for your time, for your candidness, and for for just showing up. And thanks everybody for coming and making such a special meeting. And we'll mute ourselves and go to our inner room and say the Lord's Prayer for all that care to join me, or whatever prayer you care for. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda.
Thank you, Belinda. What a great meeting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
guys.
Belinda.